What are the silent battles that some children face? The kind of hardship that's almost unimaginable. And what really compels people to step into that breach, to offer hope?
That's a powerful question.
It really is. Think about this specific scene.
Yeah.
A little girl, Janie, shows up in an ER. She's incredibly frail, clearly neglected. But then she gives this shy smile, and you see she has a rotten tooth.
Mm-hmm.
It's just stark.
Mm-hmm. That image really sets the stage. We're looking today at the complexities of child welfare, foster care, and the deep impact of trauma all through the lens of Janie's story.
Yeah, and our understanding comes from some pretty detailed sources, right?
Yeah.
Kate's notes, interview transcripts.
Exactly. It gives us a raw look. And, thinking about these complex narratives, it reminds me a bit of the kind of critical analysis you might find explored on channels like Mindful Moments. On YouTube, they use AI to analyze books, break down narratives, which encourages that deeper thinking about stories and motivations.
That's interesting. So our goal here is really to understand the journey, the challenges, the small wins involved in caring for a child like Janie, and the dedication of people like Piper Goldstein, the social worker, and the Bowers, Christopher and Hannah, who stepped up.
Let's start with Piper's first take. She noticed Christopher right away. He just seemed to have this immediate, natural connection with Janie. Like he was a calming force for her.
But Hannah was different.
A bit, yeah. Just as eager, Piper thought, but definitely more anxious. You could see the worry. And Piper, she was very clear with them from the start. This wasn't going to be easy. Honesty was key.
Which seems essential. And that hospital scene you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Christopher and Janie.
Oh, it was something. Piper walks in, and there's Christopher, fast asleep in Janie's little hospital bed, holding her. And Janie, who'd been so tense and scared, she just looked completely, utterly peaceful.
Wow.
Yeah. Piper said that single moment, that profound sense of safety Janie seemed to feel with him, that's what sealed it. That's why she recommended the Bowers for emergency foster care.
But the peace of the hospital room.
Right.
That didn't just automatically transfer to their home, I imagine.
No, not at all. The reality kicked in fast. Janie had major anxieties, especially around food. She'd hoard it or refuse to eat. Big emotional swings, too.
You mentioned biting.
Yes. Biting Christopher, biting Hannah. It's often a sign of extreme dysregulation in traumatized kids. And communication. Well, she just didn't have the words or maybe the trust to express what she needed or felt. It was tough.
Then came that discovery about her age. That must have been a shock.
Huge. Finding out she wasn't maybe 2 or 3, but actually 6 years old. And the strange thing, it seemed to make Christopher more committed, not less. Like it solidified something for him.
How did they figure it out? Her age, I mean.
Janie eventually started talking, just little bits and pieces about where she lived before. A trailer, she said, with black garbage bags taped over the windows.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. Those details, sadly, helped investigators piece things together. They identified her mother, Becky Watson, who had passed away, and confirming Becky's identity allowed them to confirm Janie was indeed 6.
And Hannah. How was she navigating all this? You said she was anxious initially.
It was complicated for her. There were definitely moments of real struggle, maybe even questioning if they could handle it. But at the same time, you saw her connection growing, reading stories to Janie, celebrating these tiny victories like Janie finally agreeing to get into the car without a fight.
But there was something else going on for her too, wasn't there?
Right. She also carried this deep desire to have a biological child. So there was this internal conflict playing out her growing bond with Janie versus this other longing.
It sounds like despite the struggles, they were really trying.
Yeah.
Learning about trauma, going to therapy.
Oh, absolutely. They were proactive. They dove into learning about trauma. They were in therapy with Janie and a Dr. Chandler. And they worked really hard to use the strategies they learned. Things to help with the food issues, the lack of toilet training, managing those big emotional meltdowns.
Did the therapy offer insights?
It did. Dr. Chandler had an interesting perspective. She suggested that a lot of Janie's anger, even when it seemed directed at Hannah, might actually be rooted in her feelings about her mother, Becky. Misdirected anger, essentially.
That makes a certain kind of tragic sense. Did things start to get better for Janie?
There were definitely positive steps, yeah. She started calling Christopher Daddy. That's a huge milestone in attachment. She began showing genuine excitement about simple things, like just going outside to play.
What about school?
They started her in preschool. That had its own challenges, understandably, adjusting to that environment, but she was going. And a really big one, she finally became toilet trained. These were real signs of progress, of healing starting.
But then life threw another curveball with the arrival of their biological son, Cole.
Exactly. And that's often a very difficult dynamic. Janie's jealousy was immediate and obvious. She started acting out more. There was an incident at the baby shower. Then she hurt another child at preschool. It seemed like she was desperate for attention, even if it was negative attention.
And Hannah must have been dealing with her own challenges then, too, postpartum period.
Absolutely. Hannah was struggling. The stress in the house just escalated for everyone.
And things got worse from there.
Tragically, yes. Janie's behaviors became more concerning, more intense. There was a really disturbing incident where Janie expressed wanting to drink Hannah's breast milk, and Hannah's reactions became more extreme too, signs of her own mental state deteriorating under the pressure.
Leading to the injury with Cole.
Yes.
Yeah.
The discovery that Janie has somehow injured baby Cole. He needed medical attention. It was the breaking point.
Just devastating. What happened then?
It was awful. Hannah seems to have suffered a severe psychotic break. She had to be hospitalized, and as a result, both Janie and baby Cole were removed from the home. Yeah. And during the investigation that followed, Piper Goldstein's interviews shed light on more than just the immediate situation. It turned out there were systemic failures long before the Bowers were even involved.
What do you mean?
Shockingly, Janie's biological mother, Becky Watson, she had actually reached out to Child Protective Services multiple times asking for help.
She asked for help?
Multiple times. But her case was never properly followed up on. Calls weren't returned, paperwork got lost, the typical systemic issues that can have devastating consequences. Opportunities to intervene, to potentially change the course of Janie's early life were missed.
That's heartbreaking, adding another layer of tragedy to it all.
It really does, and the tragedy didn't end there. Sometime later, Hannah's sister, Allison, was visiting. There was some kind of confrontation with Janie, and Allison ended up dying in what was ruled an accident.
This story just keeps getting sadder.
It's incredibly painful. Christopher then faced his own legal issues related to everything that had happened. It just shows the ripple effect, how trauma and system failures don't just impact one person, they cascade outwards. The human cost is immense.
So when we step back and look at this whole story, what are the main things we should take away?
Well, first, it starkly illustrates the incredible challenges faced by children carrying deep trauma, and also the immense dedication it takes for people to try and help them heal. It's not a simple fix.
Definitely not.
It also highlights the complexities, sometimes the failings within the foster care system itself, and it underscores just how profoundly early trauma can shape behavior, often in ways that are difficult to understand or manage without the right support.
And the need for that support for effective interventions seems critical.
Absolutely vital. Robust support systems are needed not just for the child, but for the foster families undertaking this incredibly demanding work. And we see the desperate need for child protection systems that actually function effectively, that don't let cries for help like Becky Watson's fall through the cracks.
It's a lot to process. For those listening who want to think more about these kinds of complex situations and the human element within them, resources like that Mindful Moments YouTube channel, exploring narrative analysis, might offer some interesting perspectives. And of course, we often touch on related themes in our discussions here.
And maybe a final thought to leave with you, the listener. When things go wrong, like they did so tragically here, how do we balance individual responsibility, the choices people make, with the responsibility of the systems that are supposed to protect vulnerable children? Where does that line sit?
That's a really important question. There are no easy answers there.
No, there aren't. It requires ongoing thought and reflection from all of us.
So please subscribe for more explorations like this one. If you found this discussion valuable, share it with others. You can also consider supporting our work through the link you'll find in the show notes. And most importantly, keep thinking critically about the world around you.